Hi there, welcome. Welcome to Community Homeworks Workshop this evening. I'm glad you're joining us. My name is Jason Byler. I am the Education and Volunteer Coordinator here. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm the Education Manager here at Community Homeworks. I forgot what my title was. If you're watching this live, please, in the comment section, put down where you're joining us from. We'd like to know where you are. If you are not joining us live, please, you can still put where you're from, but we're probably not going to get that right away. So we might see that a little bit later. If you have questions during this evening's broadcast, please put those in the comment section as well. Or if you have a story you'd like to tell or something about your experience, that's fine too. Put that in the comment section. If you're watching later on, you can still put that in the comment section, but we're probably not going to get to that for a day or two. Community Homeworks is a nonprofit organization here in Kalamazoo, Michigan. We have a mission to empower homeowners to maintain safe, sustainable, and dignified homes. Basically, we want people to know how to make good decisions about their homes and how to not waste their money trying to get their homes fixed and trying to keep them up to the standards that the city wants them to be at. Tonight's workshop, we are going to have a roundtable discussion with several of our regular instructors. We're going to be talking about how to hire a contractor. And this is something that most of us have to do at some point in our lives. Hire somebody to come in who's licensed, who has more know-how than what we do. And we want to make sure that we're not being taken advantage in those times and make sure that we're making good decisions about who we hire. We appreciate all of our instructors being here tonight. We've got a lot of great background here tonight. So please write in your questions and we will try to help you out as well as we can. My first person I'd like to introduce, I'm going to bring Ian in. This is Ian, and Ian has helped us on a couple workshops in the past. Ian is a carpenter for WMU, I believe. Is that correct, Ian?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, anything else you'd like to add about your background?
Before that, I did spend 13 years as a self-employed contractor.
Okay,
so I've
sounds
done
great. Thank you.
Quite a lot of this in the past. So.
All right, sounds great. I'm also going to bring in Harry. Here comes Harry, and Harry has taught a number of our classes for us. Harry has a background of being a building trades instructor on the east side of the state and decided to retire here to be closer to his children, I believe. Anything you'd like to add, Harry?
No, that's fine. I mean, I was, as you said, I was an instructor for building trades and residential construction, both at the high school and the college level. Worked for Habitat for Humanity over on the east side as their general contractor, construction manager, and even did a little business on my own, both in construction and home design. So, been around.
All right. Sounds great. Thank you for being with us. Next, I'm bringing in Gary. And there's Gary. Gary comes to us since we have one person, Harry, coming from the east side of the state. We have Gary coming to us from, he had been from Indiana, and somehow he escaped over the border. We don't have that border wall between Michigan and Indiana built yet. But Gary has a background in heating and cooling and air conditioning and plumbing, correct, Gary?
Right.
Okay. What else would you like to add?
Ductwork cleaning.
Ductwork cleaning. Okay, Gary's done that too. Great. Now I'm going to bring in Sam. There comes Sam. Hi, Sam. Thanks for joining us. And Sam is a general contractor primarily in West Michigan, correct?
Yeah.
You get around in strange places, though. I know you're once in a while you'll tell me, "Oh, I'm over here." So we're glad you're joining us here tonight. Do you want to share a little bit more about what you do?
I do primarily remodeling. I've been doing that for the past 30 plus years, longer than that actually, but with a sprinkling in of new construction every so often.
Okay.
But primarily in Van Buren County, and some work in Kalamazoo.
Great. So this is our group of instructors for tonight. We're glad you're all joining us. I want to start out by asking, how do you go about finding a contractor? If you're let's say you're looking for somebody to do electrical work in your house, how would you get started? Ian, do you want to start us?
Sure. So I always say a great resource is to ask, family, friends, coworkers, even say, hey, if you hired anybody, did they do good work? Did they charge a fair price? That sort of thing. So yeah, that's probably a good place to start.
All right. Any other hints, Harry?
No, actually, that's about one of the things I was going to say is that family and friends is a very good way. Also, nowadays, you can go onto the internet, and if you think you have a contractor to look at, there's reviews all over the place. And, you can look at the reviews and look at them cautiously, because sometimes you'll get a very scathing review from one person, but many others will be great, or just the opposite. And sometimes that great one's from one of their uncles or something or other. But if you look at the whole thing, it'll give you a good idea of what to look for.
I'll second that. I'm from a small town, and almost every contractor, every doctor, every dentist, somebody has one horror story. It may be the only thing that went wrong that year for this person, this contractor, but that's the word that gets around. So you do have to balance those.
All right. Anything else, Sam?
Yeah. Well, so word of mouth, right? That's how I don't advertise in my business. That's how I get business, is from other people talking about me or referring me. And so that's what I rely on a lot. If I happen to be at a job, or sometimes which doesn't somebody else's job, and I see some work that's being done real nice, I'll ask about their subcontractors or something, and then whatever the feedback is from the homeowner, whatever, and how they work with it. And kind of going to Harry's point, I live in a small town called Bloomingdale, and there's like a Facebook group called Bloomingdale Now or something like that. And a lot of people look for contractors there or work to be done there. And so it's like your neighborhood online, kind of getting referrals that way. And you need to weed those out, because some people are just promoting themselves or whatever. And then some people are, just being mean to be mean. That's another way that I found to find something.
All right, great. I did want to stress that we at Community Homeworks, we often work with subcontractors on our construction program, but we have a policy where we will not encourage you to use anybody in particular, because we don't want to, say, oh, this person does great work and then have it backfire on you. We want people to do their homework and check people out as well. We can tell you who we normally use, but sometimes people have a different experience than what we do, because might depend where you live. It might depend on how they interpret who you are or whatever. You never know. I tend to do a lot of my own work around my house. Last year I did have to hire an electrician because I needed some work done that needed to be licensed and insured. And I contacted one of our other instructors who isn't with us tonight, who gave me a name of somebody, and he was amazing. He did a great job. I was really happy with it. So that's great to get that word of mouth from a friend or a colleague. Where should you not look for a contractor, or what are things that would be red flags right away to say, well, this might not be somebody you want to hire?
Well, one of the things that I try to avoid is when there's a contractor that comes door to door and they tell you they're working in the neighborhood, but you know they're not. And that doesn't necessarily make them a bad contractor, but to me, that sends up a red flag that maybe you're not the person I really want to have. And that's one of the first things. Now, I'm not going to say that anybody who comes door to door is going to be a bad contractor, but that's just one of those things that make me a little skeptical. Once I get a contractor in the house, and I've had this happen to even here, we've pulled somebody in, they come up with this really fancy presentation with their laptop or their tablet, and then start throwing me a lot of prices and so on. And then, of course, when they say, oh, but if you sign today, it's going to be this much. And I'm thinking, that's when they usually are shown the door from the other side.
Okay.
And
That's
I
good
would
advice.
agree. I will agree. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Ian or Sam, anything to add to that for what are red flags for don't go with this guy, or you might want to question this guy a little more, or girl?
I would say that's actually really good advice. I'm trying to come up with another way that's like, oh yeah, that's a terrible way. You shouldn't hire a person that does X, Y, or Z. Like, don't have anything to add at the moment. So
Okay. We had a contractor join us as an instructor a year or so ago who said, I try to avoid people who have 1-800 numbers. He said, I want to have somebody who has a local phone number that I know is invested in the community. And it's a little more difficult with the internet because now you can get a 1-800 number almost anywhere and have it forwarded to Kalamazoo if you want. So I'm not sure that that's a real great way to weed people out, but it's something to think about. We had talked before the broadcast that sometimes people do a lot of advertising, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but we have to remember that advertising, the money to advertise has to come from somewhere. And if you're signing up to work with a contractor, you're going to be helping to pay for the advertising as well. So it's just something to keep aware of. Ian, do you have any stories about times when you've hired a contractor and it was a good experience or a bad experience either way?
Yeah. So usually doing my own construction work. Yeah, occasionally I would have to hire a subcontractor, and I remember one time I was doing a custom home and I hired an insulation contractor. I wanted we were doing spray foam, and so I contacted a few companies, and I had found one, and this guy came out and he really impressed me. Like he really knew his stuff. He wasn't pushy at all. He wasn't trying to sell me something I didn't necessarily need, or he listened to all of my concerns, and hey, I want to make sure it has this feature, or like this is what I'm looking for, like, and so yeah, they were very responsive. Their prices were reasonable. They didn't promise things that they couldn't necessarily deliver on, and so it was actually like probably one of the best experience I've ever had with a subcontractor.
Okay.
So
Cool.
it was really nice. So.
All right. Harry, do you have any experiences with
good
or bad
tell
with
you some
contractors?
experiences, I'm telling you. It's right after we moved here, we decided we were going to put a deck on the back of the house. Now that's what I did a lot of my business, but at my age and the fact that our deck is about 22, 23 feet above where it would go, we decided to hire a contractor. And in the time we were planning this thing, we interviewed, I think, about 6 contractors. One gentleman came out, gave us a price, and it was out of the sight crazy high. And I knew right off the bat from my experience that when I didn't want to do a job, I bid it real high. And sometimes I even got it, and that's okay. I made a lot of money on it. Then we had a young fella and his dad who were just starting out. They came in and gave us a quote that was so low that I knew that maybe paid for the materials, not their labor. And that scared me a bit. We had another guy that he was local, and I thought he was great. I've seen his stuff. I've looked at it. I thought, this is a guy I want. Over the course of time, he just didn't keep getting back, and then he did, and he didn't, and didn't. So we ended up going with another contractor that I didn't really like out of Grand Rapids. We were going to go with him. And fortunately, we did the home show over here at the Expo Center and found a local contractor who did a wonderful job. I mean, when I talked with this guy, I knew I was talking with a contractor. Just like Ian was saying, you just knew that this was the right guy. Funny thing is, the guy that I really wanted that didn't get back with us and so on, probably about 2 or 3 weeks after the deck was done, he was on the news about welching out on jobs. So I guess we really lucked out on that one too. So yeah, I've been in this business for a long time, and I still can tell you horror stories.
All right. Gary, do you have any to share?
I was doing a good job of listening.
Okay, that's fine. If you don't have one, that's fine. We can move on to Sam.
So, yeah, I kind of going back to what Ian was talking about and Harry, finding somebody you connect with, I think, is really important when you're like going through. Communication is so key when it comes to hiring somebody to come into your home. That if you're talking to them and your things aren't connecting, to me, that's a red flag right there, right? It's not that they're necessarily a bad contractor or they're, don't know how to do their job. But if you aren't able to communicate with the person who's coming into your home, I find that really hard. It tends to, your results kind of are not going to be what you hope for. And I find that if I go and meet with somebody to look at a job, from my point of view, if I don't have good rapport with them, then I know that it's probably not a job I should take on, and should say, we'll let them know that I shouldn't take it, or, fortunately, it's just not that I, letting them know that it's not a job for me. So,
Okay.
because, I've had people who are like at the end of the job say, "Oh, we're going to miss you. You become part of the family. That you've done this," and so, it's real intimate and personal when you're letting somebody in your house. Another thing to know is that the person who comes and sells you the job isn't necessarily going to be the person who actually does the work, right? A lot of these larger companies have salespeople, and then they hand that off to the crew, who may be subcontracted, who may, or whatever. And so that's something you need to do in your homework, is find out if this person you're talking to is the actual contractor, or who's actually going to do the work that actually gets done at the house. So,
Sam, along with that, in your experience, those bigger places that have a separate salesperson or an estimator or somebody who's not doing the actual work, is that a red flag, or doesn't that necessarily mean anything?
Yes and no, right?
Okay.
I've heard, I don't typically deal with larger companies, right? I'm dealing with individual contractors who I know are either doing the work for me or not, or who, but I secondhand have heard stories about, people over-promising. They come in and people aren't satisfied with the work that gets done, or
Okay.
it's a subcontract crew that came in and we're not able to communicate directly with them, and they're not responsive. They're just trying to get in and get out and get the work done as fast as possible.
Playing on
Okay.
that, what Sam was saying, that we had a similar thing just recently with us. We were going to put a retractable awning on our sunroom, and we couldn't wait. It was going to be beautiful because we had a lot of sun coming in. It overheats, and we had a very reputable company. They're based in Detroit area, but I know that they work in this area. Very reputable. Salesman came out, gave us a good price. Everything felt good. It was supposed to come and be installed, and then, of course, with this so-called supply chain thing, it took a little longer to get out there. They called us. We're going to put this up. We were excited. They got to our house about 4:00 in the afternoon. The contractors looked and said, "We can't attach this to the roof. There's no framing on it." Packed up everything and left.
Wow.
I mean, we got our deposit back, but and I think what it is that the salesman worked for the company. I felt he was reputable, and I think he still is. He just didn't have construction experience to know that we have a SIP kind of roof on our sunroom. There's no actual meat framing to attach to.
Interesting.
So it's kind of a letdown for us, but what are we going to do? If he'd have been able to talk to it, we could have come up with a plan to attach this thing. But that's what happened.
That sounds frustrating. Ian, in your experience, how many different people should you have come and look at a job? How many estimates should you get?
Usually, I would say 3 is a pretty good number to start with. You want to get at least 3. Sometimes you'll connect with somebody and you can kind of get a sense that they're the right person for the job. They listen to you. They'll return your phone calls. They'll answer your questions. Their reputation checks out. But feel free to kind of keep getting as many as you need. Like obviously Harry had to have interviewed 6 contractors for his deck. And sometimes you have to get that many quotes or interview potential contractors. And and that's the thing, like I have looked at a lot of different jobs in the past, and I never took it personally, like if I wasn't hired for a job, and I was always happy to go and look at something, a potential job to do. And sometimes you connect, and maybe it could be scheduling or some other kind of thing where like maybe it doesn't work out or whatnot. But yeah, like I would say to start with 3 and kind of go from there. So
all right. Harry or Sam or Gary, anyone want to add anything about that? How many to get or how to?
That's a good number. It's a good number to start with. But again, we ended up having to have several because it just wasn't working out what we wanted. And actually the one we were going to hire, I'm glad we didn't, because we found this other one at the home show, and it just, and like Ian was saying, it clicked. When we sat down at the table and I was talking to this guy, I knew I was talking with a contractor. And he didn't come up and say, "I'm going out to my car and look at the price book and come up with a number for you." He says, "Give me a few days, we'll call." And, he brought it out, and everything was just right with this. Unfortunately, being in the business, I was able to kind of feel that way. There's a lot of things you can think about. If you're talking with somebody about doing a major job, keep in mind that you want to ask about license and insurance. Because if somebody gets hurt in the job and they're not insured, you're going to be responsible for it. And the way the state law is set up right now, even if you are a homeowner and you pull the permit, and by the way, if there's a contractor who says to you, you go ahead and pull the homeowner permit and I'll do the work. That's a red flag right there. Just show them the door. But if you're a homeowner and you're pulling a permit to do a project, but you have to hire an electrician or you have to hire a plumber, they need to be licensed by the state too. That's the way it works out. And that came about to keep people from going ahead and pulling homeowner permits and having unlicensed, unqualified people to do it. And even though there are many unlicensed people who are very qualified, at least it's something to work with. And the insurance, again, as I said, is a very important thing. Make sure that you know that they're insured.
All right. Ian or Sam or Gary, anybody want to add anything about licensing and insurance?
Yeah, I would add, it's very easy to actually look on the state's website to verify that a contractor is licensed. And also, any decent contractor should have no problem, providing proof of insurance, for a homeowner that asks for it. And you should ask for it. You shouldn't just take their word that they say, "Oh yes, I'm licensed and insured." Well, it's like, okay, well, check that out for yourself. And I was always insured, and I can count on one hand the number of times that I was asked for it, but yeah, occasionally people did ask for it, and I was easily able to show them like proof, and yeah, and that would satisfy them. But so yeah.
Okay. Sounds great. Sam or Gary, anything else with that?
Well, one thing that I'm sure that you guys at Community Homeworks run into a lot is doing work on homes pre-1978, built before 1978. And so if you're having someone in there, they should be certified for the lead repair and remodeling and painting work. So something that's similar to licensing, but it's required now for work being done on homes that were built before 1978, since there's the potential for lead paint.
Is there a document or something that they have to carry if they're lead certified, or how do you verify that they're lead certified, or you just ask the question and trust that they're going to answer the question correctly?
Good question. I believe I was hoping you could answer that one, Jason.
Well, I can get an answer if we don't for next time. Do you know anything about it yet?
Yeah. So I know the program that Sam is talking about. Yeah, when it was a huge, all over the news, the EPA put out these requirements, and I remember, going and taking the class, and you had to have all the equipment. You had to have a HEPA vac, and there was all the requirements about based on the size of the job, whether it was required that you have to take all these steps, and you have to possibly do a lead paint test, or there was all the requirements about how you protect a home, protect a family, and whether it's inside or outside. But yeah, there was a certification, and it's good for 5 years, and there is a certificate attached with that, and I don't know if you can look that up online, but I remember when I went through the course, there was a certificate. So
okay,
and it was like an all-day kind of course, like I took it like on a Saturday.
I had to take that course when I was working for a fella in HVAC, and actually I was in the office, but because I could go out in the field, and the certificate came to him, not to me,
Okay.
as one of his employees.
Okay. So lead is something to make sure you're watching out for, somebody who knows how to work with lead, so you're not exposing yourself or your family to hazardous stuff as far as that goes. I'd imagine it's similar if you have asbestos or anything else in your house that could be toxic.
Well, if you're working in a lot of the older homes that are in the area, there's very likely going to be asbestos, especially in the heating system, usually in the hot water or the steam pipes. And if it's covered, it's safe. But if it's got anything open up, it could get out there in the air. You know, all of us, especially those of us in this age, in my age group that were doing work, I remember cutting asbestos siding without a mask and whatnot. We just didn't know that much about it.
Well, and I'm sure lead wasn't an issue years ago either. Otherwise, they wouldn't have. I mean, the more they learned about lead, the quicker they made sure that there wasn't lead in paint anymore.
Oh, I know we had a lead supply line from the water main to the house that I grew up in, which maybe explains a lot of things, but you know, it is what it is. I mean, we knew that we didn't know that at the time, and you know, it's not like the Flint thing, where there was corrosiveness in the Flint water that caused all the problems. Lead can be relatively safe if it's handled properly.
All right. Harry, you mentioned going to the home show and finding somebody there who you connected with. Is the home show a good place to try to find a contractor, or did you just get lucky?
I'm going to say it's a yes and a no. Okay. I mean, we also, when we remodeled our bathroom, we wanted to remove our tub and put a walk-in shower. Especially getting at our age, we knew it would be a lot easier for us. And so we got somebody from the home show, and he was another one of those guys that gave us a 45-minute rundown of how great his company was before he gave us the price after looking at his price book, and it was unreal. But it's also the home show where we met the guy that did our deck, and actually we asked him to come and do our the work in our bathroom. I mean, just because. So yes, you can find a good contractor. Just beware that you're going to find a lot of salespeople and a lot of people that are going to just keep telling you how great they are, and then they're going to go out and get a price book, and it's either going to be high or low, and it's going to suit them, and they may make money on most jobs, but they'll probably lose one or two. They just play the game.
There are a lot of people. There are a lot of people out there that will say that they're the only ones that can do it right, and there are a lot of people that know how to do this work.
You know, it just when I was in the contracting game, it just, you know, it's bad because a lot of people had given a lot of us good ones. I like to think of myself at least as a good one. Give us a bad name, you know, and that's what happens.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
One thing I want to say is the more work that a homeowner can do prior to reaching out to a contractor, the more, if it's a larger project, you know, have a clearer idea of what they want, and have done their homework and research on things. The easier it is to, like, you know, figure out, you know, how to price it, how the job would go, you know, what are the main things that somebody wants, you know, whether it's you know, they've gone onto Pinterest or something and have a lot of pictures or ideas of what they want the finished product to look like. I'm not a big fan of Pinterest because everybody thinks you can, you know, that can happen overnight. And the reality is that, you know, remodeling is a little more involved than that. Typically, but, you know, clear ideas and way, if it's either pictures or words that can really articulate what it is they're after, then that's a lot that gets you further down the road rather than just like, oh, we don't like the bathroom, we wanted something different, you know, or the kitchen's not working. You know, what is it that's not working for you? How do you make that better?
Sounds great. Good advice. It brings me to my next question. If you're hiring somebody, if you've narrowed it down to one person, how do you ensure that that the work that you think you're going to have done is actually the work that they're going to do? How do you make sure that you're holding each other accountable, that they're not tacking on extra pricing, that they're not cutting corners, whatever? what can a homeowner do to ensure that the work is done the way they think it should be done?
Well, it's a tough one. I mean, a good solid contract is, of course, something that helps. But even there, as a contractor, you're going to try to protect yourself when you're writing the contract too. I think the best thing I can say is if you're speaking with a person and you honestly feel good about them, look at their contract and look at what they say in it. You know, are they going to give themselves some clauses about added extra cost? And is that added extra cost fair? I mean, let's face it. If you're doing a major remodeling job and the contractor says, well, if I take down this wall and I find something else, there's going to be additional cost. So you have to go on it with an open mind if you're the person who's having the work done. But again, it's just a good feeling. You got to, I mean, one of the things I'm probably going to close this thing off with, but I'll say it now, is if it doesn't feel right, walk away.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, having a mechanism in the contract for change orders or, you know, things that come up is definitely important. Specifying who's supplying what, payment schedule, right? So, you know, after a certain phase is done, you know, if it's a larger project, you know, so not all the money comes out at once. The homeowner's paying as the job progresses. There will likely be money up front for larger jobs to get things started. But having a way of conflict resolution written into the contract too is important, right? So if there is something that comes up that there's a disagreement on, how is that going to be? How do you resolve that, right? So it's like any good relationship is good communication up front. Don't be afraid to talk about money and what budgets are, you know, expectations.
A good contractor will have no problem telling you what the material cost is going to be, what the labor cost is going to be. In fact, sometimes they'll even give you what their overhead is going to be. It's not a big issue with that. I mean, you know, and getting back to this, you know, if there's conflict, if you have a licensed contractor, the state supposedly will come to bat with you because they are a licensed contractor through the code administrators. The problem is they've got very few investigators for this whole state. And sometimes those conflicts can take up to 2 years to be resolved. And in most cases, the state's going to tell you go to arbitration before we even get involved in that. So you're kind of on your own. You got to be very careful. It'd be nice to think the state's there to protect you, but let's face it. Most of the guys that are investigators are also contractors themselves. They've been appointed that job ultimately by the governor. So, I mean, you're kind of on your own. So you got to just do some homework, use good feelings, and look for honesty. It's tough.
Yeah.
Gary, what did you want to say?
Timeline and scheduling. Understand that contractors are running multiple jobs at the same time to keep themselves busy. And there are times that they will step away from your place for several days to be at another spot. You know, they have timing where they're coordinating, waiting on the drywallers to do their work before they come back. There is some of that, but I do understand it gets infuriating when you see something just set for way longer than you think it should. Yeah, in my work, I get out to enough different projects. And some projects move very, very slowly.
All right. Ian, do you have anything to add about contracts and how to make sure that you get everything covered?
Yeah, I think everyone else has already touched on it a little bit, but yeah, just absolutely everything that was, you know, that the contractors promised should be spelled out in the contract. what, everything that they're offering, everything that they're supplying, everything that they're expecting you to supply. It also could go into, things that they want you to have, before they can start the work. Whether that be, maybe you need to have, room cleared out and, a path to the work. It's hard for a contractor to get to a job and they can't get to the part of the house that they're working on, but just absolutely everything. And then, basically it would spell out all the expectations from both sides, of, who's buying what, who's supplying that, specify all the different materials and yeah, and also, like Gary says, like there should be a timeline on there too, not just open-ended and it gets done when it gets done, like,
One of the things that I've heard homeowners complaining about recently is the supply chain issues, saying, "Oh, we can't get these supplies yet, and so you really want to have this work done on your home, but we're not going to be able to get the supplies for another 3 months or whatever." Is that a legitimate concern right now, or is that something that should be a red flag that we should say, okay, this person isn't doing something right because they don't have their materials on hand?
I think it is a very legitimate concern right now, because pretty much everyone is experiencing that right now, and not only are the supply chain issues, but contractors are usually booked up pretty well in advance, and it takes going to, it's like, okay, if you want to redo your kitchen, like, well, okay, well, you interview contractors and have them come out, and okay, you've picked one out, and then maybe you've gone to see a kitchen designer and you've picked out your cabinets and your appliances, and all of that has a lead time, and it's probably smart to wait until all that stuff comes in before the contractor rips your kitchen out, and then like you're stuck with an empty room. And yeah, so maybe all that stuff is in the garage, make sure you have the cabinets or the appliances. And so yeah, I don't think it's a red flag that it's hard to get materials right now.
Yeah.
I mean, unless it's like on the shelf, at the lumber yard or the like a big box store. Yeah, it is hard to get a hold of some things. So,
All right.
and I've heard even simple things like switches and plugs, for example. Like sometimes those are hard to get hold of. It just, you never know like where the problems are going to be. But yeah, like everyone is experiencing that, so you just don't know.
I think it goes back to just having a contractor you can depend on and who's going to be honest with you. And they can tell you if we can't get the supplies, we can't start it.
Yeah.
Good contractor, just what you're saying is, when we have the supplies, then we'll start the job.
Yes.
And and to me, it was, when I was on the east side of the state, it was much easier to find a contractor that could come right away. But it seems like over here on the west side, everybody's booked up solid. They're tough. Even my guy who did our bathroom, I mean, it took us forever to get him in there. And he really didn't want to take the job because it was kind of hard to determine just what had to be done. And because at least we had this relationship with him, I finally said, okay, I'll tell you what, if you'll come in and do it, time and materials, I can be happy with you. That's probably a good thing for him, because when they tore the tub out, they realized that there was some kind of funky things going on with the plumbing that I had to go and make some changes on. And, just like Gary was saying, some of these contractors have got more jobs going on, so they were able to pull off our job for a couple of days and go to one of their other jobs.
Yeah, definitely.
Sam, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I'm running into supply chain issues right now trying to get materials in that. And then the thing is materials are are going back up again from their high from the pandemic, last year. So the prices went up and they went back down a little bit, and then they're going back up again. So I'm working on a kitchen design or a kitchen that we don't know when the appliances are going to come in. So I hope to be doing that this month, but it looks like I might have to get scheduled out till June now. So that to make sure that all their materials and the cabinets and that can get in. So we're replacing a window in this project too. We went ahead and ordered it. It originally was at 20 weeks out, which is 5 months, but it'll be here this coming month. So, but we just.
So sometimes they schedule it way out and then it gets there faster, but at least you're prepared.
Right. Yeah. And I think the window manufacturer is like saying it's going to take that long because it may take that long, but they did get it in a shorter amount of time. So, unfortunately, they have enough space in the garage to store the materials until we're ready to do it. So.
Anybody want to say anything else about that subject, or can we move on? We've got a couple of questions that have come in just in the last few minutes. All right. First question is a long one. Jules says, if you're planning a big project like a kitchen remodel, what advice do you have for a homeowner planning a budget? There's labor, materials, finishes, etc., plus a buffer for the unexpected. And then there's the value of your home for your neighborhood, resale value, etc. Is there a planning tool that you would recommend? Who wants to touch that one? That's a big one.
I've told people plan on a 25% buffer in your budget more than for a large project, and it can be more depending on the house and the age of the house and the condition of the plumbing and that. So you can find a surprising amount of surprises in a wall or in something, things you wouldn't expect, framing that's below, is that structural bits that are compromised that you didn't know until you opened the wall, or wiring with buried electrical wires in the wall. So, and I think the National Association of Home Builders might have used to have a tool for major remodels. They'll have payback values on them, or kitchens, with the payback value. If that kind of answers the question for the value of the household in the neighborhood. But,
right.
Depending on but with the price of materials these days, I'm not sure if that calculator is still relevant. So.
Jules asked too about the resale value. And I guess the old rule of thumb was you don't want to have a house that's the most expensive in your neighborhood nor the cheapest in your neighborhood. You want to fall someplace in there, which is what I thought we had until we got the assessment the other day. And I'm realizing that the township thinks my house is worth more than a whole lot more than I thought it was worth.
Are you an Oshtemo?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yeah, I know you are too. And I know Libby too, but I mean, I know that this time I think I'm going to have to lease. I've been doing some research the last couple of days, and
well, they're paid to do those considerations. So yes.
Yeah, you'll see me at the township hall one day soon.
Okay.
Is that a threat, Harry? Are you threatening Gary?
No, nothing like that. I mean, Gary doesn't do the assessing.
I know, I'm just kidding.
But I mean, I think that it's been overassessed, and I'll make my case. And if I make my case and I win, fine. If not, if I don't make my case, they can't tell me no.
Right. Yeah.
Ian, do you have anything to add to Jules' question? Anything about budgeting or a planning tool that you'd recommend?
I don't know of a planning tool right off the top of my head right now. It's kind of hard to, plan for like, the crazy home values and also, the price of materials these days. It does make it really difficult. Um, it might be helpful to, talk to a kitchen designer or, go and look at cabinet brands and, find one that you like and, don't be afraid to go to, some kitchen displays and, find things that you like and, that's a good place to start, I guess. Um, you know, I guess wherever those displays might be. Um, but yeah, I mean, I guess that's a good place to start. So.
Okay. I know my wife and I redid our kitchen not long ago, and we were trying to figure out how to make everything flow better in the kitchen, so that we weren't running from one end of the kitchen to the other. And one of the things that we started out with was just taking a piece of graph paper and graphing out the shape of the kitchen, and then figuring out where we wanted the sink and where we wanted the stove and where we wanted cabinets and all that kind of thing, just with cuts of pieces of paper as the sizes. And we also used a program online called Home by Me, I think it was. It was a similar thing for laying out the kitchen cabinets and so on. It worked pretty well, but it wasn't perfect by any means. All right. Anybody else want to add anything to Jules' question, or should we move on to the next question?
Yep. Go ahead.
Moving on. Okay. The next question. Melanie is saying, where do you source trustworthy contractors? And we talked about this a lot at the beginning of the session. So when we're done here, you might want to go back and listen to the beginning, Melanie. I think that the big thing that we all agreed on was ask around to friends and get word of mouth recommendations. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Yeah, that and the internet.
And the internet. Look
Yeah.
for reviews online.
A contractor is going to give you references when they come out, but if you're a contractor, are you going to give a reference from somebody who didn't like what you did? Obviously, you're going to give the people that are happy with you.
All right. And we are almost out of time here. If there's anybody else out there watching who would like a question answered, please write it in the comment section. We'll try to get to it yet before we end. Any other things that we're forgetting, Ian, that we haven't talked about that you feel are important that we cover tonight?
I can't think of anything at the moment.
Okay. Harry, do you have anything you'd like to share?
Other than what I said earlier, if you're talking to a contractor and it doesn't feel right, walk away, because it probably isn't.
Good. Great advice. Gary, what do you want to end us with?
I will agree. And I have my own story, but I will agree there. Yes.
Okay. All right. And Sam, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, don't be pressured into anything, right? Just
Okay.
take time, take a breath. If it's a remodel, it's, you're going to be disrupting your life. You have to live with this person, and you want it to be a good outcome for both of you. So,
Is this somebody I want to have in my home for?
right.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And it's a very stressful situation, no matter how you look at it. The bigger the project, the more the stress is. Even if you're doing the work yourself. Ask my wife.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you very much, all of you, for contributing tonight. I feel like we've been able to really get a lot of information out there. I'm sorry that my lights went out here a little bit ago, and it's a motion sensor, so I'm sitting here in the dark now, but oh well. I figure we're almost done, so I can deal with it.
I'm in the
What was
dark
that?
all the time anyway, so it doesn't matter.
I really wanted to thank you guys. It's been a good workshop. We got a lot of good information out there, so I hope our participants are able to glean information from it as well. I did want to mention next week we will have another workshop next Tuesday. we're going to be talking about plumbing repairs, not plumbing, just plumbing, but toilet repairs. Our instructor will be Lee Taylor. So he'll talk about how to change all the parts in the back of the toilet and change seals and wax rings and all that good stuff. So we will be doing that. Also, we are looking at hopefully going back to in-person workshops the end of this month or beginning of next month. So that's something to look forward to. We will plan to continue offering workshops virtually as well. So we're still working on some of the details for that, but hoping that we can take our in-person classes and also have a camera there so that if someone does not feel comfortable being in person, they can still join us online. So that's what we're looking at right now. Those of you who are out in cyberland joining us on the web, if you have feelings on that, please send them to us. Let us know how you're feeling about coming back in person. I already know how Harry's feeling. He's raring to go with in person, so that's good. We appreciate that. I'm sure some of the other instructors here are as well.
It's time.
If you are watching and you got a lot out of this workshop tonight, please consider visiting our website, communityhomeworks.org, and you can make a donation to our organization there. Any closing remarks from any of our instructors? No, nobody wants to say anything.
Appreciate
All
you.
right.
I appreciate you putting these on, Jason, and community.
All right.
Community Homeworks does so.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sam. Thank you, Ian. Thank you, Harry. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Gary. And thank you for everyone who joined us online. Have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Goodbye.